was my first recollection of being in a Catholic church. It was a great Gothic church, and they had beautiful stained glass windows, candles in front of statues all over the place, and I can still remember the smell of incense. The church was packed, but everyone was quiet. And I said to my mom, "Mommy, what are they doing?" And she said, "Shh, they're talking to God." This is where I want to be. I want to be with people, and I want to lead people and show people, teach people how to communicate with God, how to pray to God. What attracted me to the Paulists was Father Hecker, the founder of the Paulist Fathers, and also St. Paul the Apostle. Father Hecker, it seems like he defined himself by working mostly with people outside the institutional church. And I think that's what transforms people's hearts. Not giving them a set of doctrines or dogmas and saying, if you can believe these, sign on the dotted line, boom, you're a Catholic. But rather to inspire their hearts and their minds that God loves them so much that there's nothing that they can do to make God stop loving them. I think that's a compelling message, and I think that's the message that inspired Paul and also inspired our founder, Father Hecker. I was a chaplain for 30 years with the U.S. Navy, and the primordial purpose for the chaplain to be there is to ensure that all members of the armed services have a right to exercise their conscience. As a chaplain, I was sending guys off to war and burying many of them when they came back. I'd say this to these guys that were going off to war zones: I only pray that if you are any of those who will die in the sands of the Arabian desert, that you will have sometime before then found a buddy or a trusted witness that you can share with. Share your secrets, your fears, and your resentments. And I will be available after this presentation if any of you want to share them with me. I'd go outside of the tent, and these guys would be lined up in the sands of the Mojave Desert, and they would all kneel down before me, and some of the guys would cry and tell me what they were fearful of, or tell me about their secrets, or tell me their fears. And I felt like it was probably the most profound ministry I ever had to do in my life. And many of the guys did come back. I buried, in a period of 4 years, I buried 127 young Marines. 127 in 4 years. Ironically, in the midst of all of this, my mother asked if she could come out and stay with me for a couple of weeks on the desert, and while she was there, she died. So I was dealing with 127 young Marines and my mother's death, and I don't remember during that 4-year period ever shedding a tear. But I did process it several years later when I was hiking across Spain, the Camino de Santiago. And I had one day, I hiked 22 miles. I hiked through a rainstorm. I had a meltdown, and I emerged from it a healed and a new man. And it was during that day, that gifted day that God gave me, that I was able to process this terrible grief, which I had been keeping inside at that point for about 4 years. The hardest and saddest experiences of my priesthood have also in many ways been the most profoundly joyful. I'm hooked on walking prayer now. When I hiked 500 miles across France and Spain the year that I retired from the Navy, most of the time I spent was in solitude, and I would pray the Rosary. The Rosary, it reminds us of the angelic salutation, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. And it's our belief that in that moment, human history changed. Because in that moment, the unseen God became a part of creation and became a human being. And we repeat that over and over and over again. And it becomes like a verbal music, and reminding us that through the incarnation, God becomes one with us and we become one with God.